Okay, here's the second part of the video. So last video we left off where we installed Suse Manager 3.2. We put in our mirror credentials. We checked the repositories that we had access to, and there were the repositories I were expecting weren't there. But anyways, it turns out that there was a patch that was released, and that fixed my issue. The So Suse Manager Sync Data was the package that has a patch to it, and turns out there's a PTF out there for it. So I basically installed that, and it fixed my issue. The thing that I was looking for is if I run the RPM uh, dash Q Suse Manager Sync Data, and then I do a change log, I'll pipe it to more or less. Just at the very top, I can see that on April 29th, this one is what I was missing, the SLES 11 SP4 LTSS channel for SAP. So you guys saw that in last video. I was like, not all the repos that I was expecting were there. So if I now do a list channels, if I do a manager sync list channels, I mean, I get tons of them now. Um, oh yeah, this sometimes will prompt you for that. And so now all the repositories that I was looking for in the first video are here. So I'm dealing with SLES 11 SP4 SAP, and now all these child channels are appearing. The one that I was concerned with is this LTSS one. There's been an issue for that one not showing up. So it's there, and I can see that it's synced because it's got this I there, and that's what I was testing for. And if I go to my Suse Manager server now, we log in. Alright, so we're at the overview, and I haven't registered any clients yet, but I can probably go through that. We'll see. Um, so again, I go to the admin, I go to Setup Wizard, and then I go to my SUSE products. Unlike the first video, there's a bunch more here, mainly all the SUSE Linux Enterprise servers, the SLES, um, and the ones that I can filter out some of the stuff. You can filter out just on x64. I can even look just for SAP, right, and it'll show up. You can see that I chose, remember I was telling you, you click this and you add product, that this is what it looks like when it's synced up. You've got this green check mark. You can also sync up the other optional channels like geo-clustering if you're doing high availability across geographies. You've got the software development kit for those who develop applications, and then the SMT, the subscription management tool, which is a cool free way to sync up your mirror your RPMs, which is something that Suse Manager does already. That's just one small part of what Suse Manager does. SMT, that's all it does. It just downloads all your RPMs, and then it's available for patching. But you know, like I said, that's sort of now it's the RMT that's sort of been outdated with the SMT, and it doesn't give you all the features that you get with Suse Manager. But if you're in a pinch and you got a patch, this is what would work. Alright, so if I now look, in the first video we didn't see all of this, but now we see all these mandatory channels that come with it. And these are all the child channels that come with now this is a server for SAP, and I could see my LTSS is in there, which is what I wanted. And that's what we wanted. Alright, cool. Um, so that's what it looks like when you select the product to sync. And now if we go to our software channels, we see all of them, right? And right now it's showing me all the SUSE channels. Right now I've only got one selected, but if you had, you know, SLES 11 SP3, SLES 12, SLES, and then you'd have a whole bunch of them. And you've noticed these are all the SUSE, the ones that you download directly from SUSE Customer Center, which is sec.suse.com. And you can see the child channels, and here's my LTSS, and you can see all the packages that have been downloaded, how many patches are involved, which is cool. Now I've noticed a lot of people use SUSE Manager this way. They just basically take the daily syncs from SUSE Manager to SEC, and then they just patch their servers. The problem is that there's a lot of requirements for people to sort of freeze their patching, and there is a way of doing that without touching your SUSE uh, repository syncs, right? We want that to happen every night. I think it happens every night at 3 a.m. What you want to do is custom channels that'll show up here in my channels. It's a long story. Uh, there's for SUSE Manager 3.2. It's sort of a manual process where you got to set that up, how to basically have freeze channels every quarter, so that way you can freeze, in the first quarter, then patch your dev, QA, and production, and then it'll propagate. Then you can propagate that up to QA, and then all your stuff is frozen, so that you know exactly what's going into each of the environments. That right now, well, that was a manual process, but in SUSE Manager 4.0, as I was reading, that's now you can do that now through the GUI interface. So I haven't played with that yet, but I did see it on the release notes. Anyways, so now what do I do? So I have a client that I installed with SLES 11 SP4 for SAP, and I wanted to make sure uh, that I can patch that server and have my LTSS repositories, which I didn't have before. So let's see, I think I called it SSH over there. Okay, so right now I don't have any repositories here. I've only got, this is just a DVD, the ISO that I used to install. List repositories, nothing, right? So this is good. So I've got a SUSE Manager server at 3.2. I just solved the issue by installing a patch on SUSE Manager 3.2 that now allows me to have access to my LTSS repositories, which is what I need for SLES 11 SP4 SAP. So if I go back, the first thing I would do is I go and create an activation key. An activation key. And that activation key is going to be used on the bootstrap script that I'm going to create. So if I go to let's see, systems and activation keys, right? I don't have any now, right? This is a test brand new build. All right, so I'm going to create a key, and this is specifically, I'm going to make it specifically for just SLES 11 SP4 SAP clients. So SLES 11 SP4, let me make that capital, 11 SP4 for SAP clients. I don't know. Alright, now this one's very specific. You can't have any special characters or spaces. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say SLES 11 SP4 for, I'll just put SAP and dash x8664. I'll call that key that. You can call it whatever you want, but as long as you don't have, I use that so I can recognize, all right, this key is going to be for SLES 11 SP4 SAP clients on x80, x8664. Let's see, base channel. So now I get to pick what base channel that's going to be. That key is going to be based off of, and I'm going to pick my SLES 11 SP4 SAP pool. Very cool. Now here you can choose your child channels that you want to include. You don't have to include all of them. So for me, I definitely want, you can select the ones that are mandatory. All right, let's see. So I'm going to skip that for now so I can go back and put them in later, the child channels. OS image build host, contact method, don't need to do that. And the universal default is just, an activation key that you set up, that all clients that don't have a specific activation key, they'll get this one. But obviously I don't want that because this is specific to SLES 11 SP4. So I'm going to create the key. Alright, and I go down here. Okay, so I guess we picked the child channels here now. So I want to put, obviously for sure, the updates. And it looks like they all get picked anyways. If you picked one, they select all the mandatory ones. So there you go. So I'm going to update activation key. Alright, all the clients. It says for SAP clients have been modified. Okay, so I don't have any clients registered yet, but I do have an activation key now. So if I go to activation keys, now I've got this one. Alright, and this is the key that I'm going to use on my bootstrap script. Okay, so now the next thing I do, oh, here it is. Okay, so here under admin, manager configuration, there's something called bootstrap script. Okay, so basically all we're going to do is create a bootstrap script. So here are the defaults. So basically it's telling you it's going to put it on this Suma server, right, VM test Suma, and the certificate is going to be located here, right, this RPM, where it installs all the certificates where they need to go, even on the client. Whenever you bootstrap the client, it's going to put the certificates that it needs so that it can communicate with the server. Alright, now here's where you have an option. Bootstrap using Salt, which I recommend highly. It's even, in other words, if you've never used Salt, you won't even tell the difference. Other than if you have lots and lots of clients, then you'll see a difference, because if you're doing one or two clients, that's not a big deal. But when you get to hundreds or over 50 clients and you use Salt, you're going to see that things happen much quicker. You'll get results much quicker. If you don't do this, the bootstrap script is going to create the old standard of SSH. So the reason that's slower is because then when you use SSH, you got to have a login. It creates a shell, and it goes through all the protocols for allowing an SSH to occur, which is the authentication process and PAM modules if you got that, and then it has a shell that it has to put up. So with Salt, that all goes away. Then now you just have a Salt agent connection to the Salt master server. Underneath Suse Manager, it uses Salt masters to do all this. And like I said, even if you don't use Salt, you don't have to. You really won't tell a difference in terms of managing your clients, other than you have more capabilities when you get to that point. Alright, so enable SSL, yes we do. Anyway, so all this is going to do is create a shell script, and you'll see what that does. Okay, so I'm going to just say update. Okay, and it says bootstrap script successfully generated. Now you can access it here. So if I go to my command line on my Suse Manager server, let's see, I'll just open a tab. SSH root at 192.168.1.105. Okay, so in here what happened is I go to let's see, serve www.htdocs pub, I think, and then bootstrap. In this directory, now you'll see this bootstrap script, right? This is what got created. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy this one, since I know this is a typical general Salt bootstrap script, which basically means it's going to install Salt minions on the client that uses this as a bootstrap script. So I'm going to copy this one, bootstrap script.sh, and I'm going to call it bootstrap, I don't know, bootstrap slash 11 sp4 sap salt.sh. Okay, so all I did is copy that. And so now if I open this, it's just a bash shell script, so no big deal. The thing that you have to fill out though is here, the activation key. That's the one we just created. You can also put an org key, the organization key, which you have when you create, if you have different organizations, you might have a different activation key and an organization key that goes with it. But in our case, for these purposes, I don't have that, so I don't have to worry about it for now. Okay, so we created the bootstrap script. We've created one for that we're going to make specifically for SLES 11 SP4 SAP. Now if I go back to my activation keys up in systems, all right, now I'm just going to copy that key that's over here. So I'm going to copy this one and I'm going to paste it to this guy here. Okay, and that should be it. The rest you can leave alone. Alright, that's all you really need to do. The rest you can leave alone. So I'm going to write and quit that. Okay, so we have a bootstrap script that we can use to register our servers, but we haven't created a bootstrap repo. A bootstrap repo is basically a directory that is going to be specifically for SLES 11 SP4 or any release. Every release will have its own bootstrap script. It's just a directory full of the initial RPMs that are needed to register the client. So I'm going to, let's see. Okay, so we've recreated the bootstrap SLES 11 SP4 SAP salt.sh bootstrap script, and now we just got to create the repo. So there's a command called manager dash, you can tab, and this is where you can say create bootstrap repo. Again, this is a directory that's going to have the initial RPMs that are needed to register a client, and that includes installing RPMs. So I'm going to just press enter. There's a bunch of stuff you can put as I don't know, arguments to it, or parameters some people call. If you just press enter, it's interactive, and it says, okay, which one of the repos you want to create, and I'm going to select, there's only one, so I select one. And now you can see it's installing these, well, it's copying all these RPMs. And it's not duplicating them, but it is copying these RPMs to this directory. And now we've got a repo that'll be used when I register this client. Okay, so back on the client. Right now we should be able, we should be able to see. You can see that this is available to us. So if I go to repo bootstrap, let me go to that Suse Manager server here. Alright. If I go to is it pub? Yeah, there's bootstrap. Right, so I can download this bootstrap script right from here. So if I don't know, you can do however you want. Copy link address, and if I go to my client, which is here, so remember I have nothing, list services nothing, zipper, list repositories nothing. So now I'm going to bootstrap this client, and when I do, it should automatically get all the repositories that are available for SLES 11 SP4 or SAP, which include all the child channels that I selected. So let's check that out. Right, I can do, there's various ways, and we have documentation on this, on how to do this, how to bootstrap a client, and it's changing now with Suma 4.0. You know, I haven't looked into it, but you know, it's changing. So I do it the same way I've been used to doing it. I just do a wget on that script and download it. Right, I just wget that. Hold on, I need to take away the S. Okay, so I have this. Now I've got this bootstrap script here. And now I'm just, you can either change your permissions or pipe it to bash, whatever you want to do. I'll just do a chmod on it. Add execution to bootstrap. Alright, so we've got activation key, and we can even check it here. Make sure we have that activation key set. And there it is. And we've got a bootstrap repo, so that's done. And we should be good if we execute this now and see what happens. So it's basically using that bootstrap repo to install the packages it needs to register. And now you see we've got salt minion. So if you do, let's see, this is 11, so rc salt status, you can see we have a running salt minion. Even though this is SLES 11, um, it's running salt minion, so that's cool. And now if we go over to our Suse Manager server, right, if I just go back. Alright, so let's go to home overview. What do we have? Okay, so here what you need to do is go look at salt, and you look at keys. And now that we have this SLES 11 SP4 SAP is waiting. It basically has said it's got a salt minion key, and it's basically waiting for us to accept it. Now you can do hundreds at a time. In this case I'm only doing one, so I'm just going to manually say accept it. And once you accept it, that's it. Now this is where the communication between the salt master and the salt minion takes over, and now you have access to a bunch of salt commands, a bunch of salt stuff that can be done. So anyways, but if you don't care about that, then you don't really see a big difference at this point. You just basically had to accept it, and now we see that we have a system here, and it's good. So what's happening now, though? Once a client gets registered as a salt minion, there's a whole bunch of stuff that's happening in the back end right now. There's something that's called high states, and this all has to do with salt. But basically, this is what's cool about salt, is that Suse Manager using Salt Master knows what needs to be installed and where things need to belong for this client to successfully communicate with the Suse Manager server. At this point, you can see that. Well, let's go see if we have anything running. We have any pending. So we've got events. This is for the client. There's no pending. What about the history? And we can see, there you go, apply states. So here are those things I was telling you that has to do with salt, but it's applying all these states, the certifications, the channels. There should be, this is probably part of the high, what's called the high state. All right. And so there you go. That now we've synced our repositories. And one thing I wanted to show you too is that when you do sync up repositories, one thing that I like to do, and you probably know this, but if you don't, in the Suse Manager server, if you cd over to var log rhn repo sync, this is where all your channels that get synced up. Now what I usually like to do is when I go and say add product and it's syncing up, I usually like to do a tail on that file so that I can see it scrolling by as it's downloading packages. But if you look at this, for example, I don't know, we'll look at the LTSS, my favorite, this guy, copy. Alright, so if I do that and I don't know, push out the last 50 lines, you can see that it's importing these packages, and it's going to happen now nightly. Every day it's going to go out there and it's going to look to see if we have any new packages that have been released, patches, and it'll download them and it'll sync them up, and then you'll see this completeness here, or you'll see failures if there's a problem. But anyways, sync completed is good, and I just wanted you to know that in here, repo sync, that's mostly what you'll be using whenever you want to add products or sync patches to make sure things are working fine. And if we look here at our software, software channels all, and then we look at this. So this is again the SUSE version that is downloading every day, every night. If you look at the patches that have been downloaded, let's see. Oh wait, this is packages. Alright, these are all the packages that have been downloaded. What about the systems that are subscribed to this? And there you go. There's only one system, and I subscribe to it. Alright, now as you can see that a lot of things are popping up now. That client, it now recognizes that there's 387 critical and non-critical 277. Basically, it needs to be patched. Right, and you get a lot of other information here for a lot of information from the Salt client, and you can find out a lot of information. You can do a bunch of stuff from here. Remote commands. It's basically like dishing out commands to one or many clients that have Salt minions on it. Okay, but then here you can see the channels are subscribed to, and if I wanted to patch this, I can go software and basically go to patches, and I'll be able to apply all these patches. There's 664. So all I can simply do is just say, hey, I want to do them all, select all, right? And it's saying that 664 patches selected. If I go to apply patches now, it's going to tell you when you want to schedule it. Now it's always going to have the date of today, and I always like to go up a couple because I want it to happen like yesterday type of thing. Alright, and I confirm, and this is where having a Salt minion is really cool because things happen a lot quicker. So once I do that and you're like, I wonder where it's at, I go to events, and now you can see that there are a pending event. There's a patch pending, and so sometimes you can go in here and you can just do a reload, and now it's gone. And now you go to history, and now you can see that it's actually doing the patch. So again, it bypasses all that SSH stuff. So if I'm still curious as to how it's doing, I'll just go to admin, and I'll go to the task engine status, which is the thing that schedules everything, and I go to runtime status, and I'll check in here to see if anything's running. Doesn't look like anything's running now. So what we've done is we've seen that the client has picked up its job and it's working on it. So let's go back to that system now. I mean, while it's patching, you can play around with this. If I go to events, we have no pending. It got picked up already. We'll go to the history. Now if I click on here, it should tell me how it's doing. There you go. So this action will be executed at this time. This action status has been picked up, and it's not yet complete. So man, all of this is going to get installed, but at least you know that it's not complete yet, but it's working on it. And so, come back and check it out, and this will eventually turn to a check mark. Okay, we can see that the patch update is now green check mark under the history, and let's see if there's any pending events. No pending events. So if we go back to the beginning of this, or the details of the server, now you can see that the system is up to date, but the system requires a reboot. So you can schedule a reboot now right from here, or you can do it from the client itself. So if I go just to do a quick check on what I have from my client, zipper list services. Now we've got all these services that are available to me. If I do a zipper list repositories, now there it's all there. So I can do a reboot from the client, or I can do it from Suse Manager. So I can just go to schedule a reboot, and it's going to look the same as when you did the patches. So I'm just going to say today, and then like I said hours ago, and reboot system. So if I go to that client, it should start popping out a wall message. I think it takes 3 minutes for it to reboot. Okay, if we look at the Suse Manager server, just like before with the events, we can see there's no pending in the history. You should see the reboot one here. Yeah, system reboot scheduled. And after that, we're all patched. Okay, so there you go. That's how you sync your repositories. That's how you create an activation key. And that's how you create a bootstrap script. And it's also how you create a bootstrap repo, which you need. And finally, that's how you register a client. All right, I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching.